Yo, what's up everybody? It's Drewberry, and we just got a huge patch that just dropped into Marvel Snap. It is live right now. You can jump into your collection and check out all these changes, but we're going to deep dive into them in a second, like this one above me, which I'm stoked about. But we have a few other changes as well, right? So some general changes. We have the series drops, right? We already knew about this. I think they released this about a week ago, so you could kind of plan ahead. But I wish they would give us more advance notice, like let us know at the beginning of the season, the beginning of the month, when these changes are going to happen, when the cards are going to drop and which ones. It'd just be a little bit of a healthier way to avoid accidental purchases or feels bad purchases when you buy the card the day prior. That will still happen, but it'll be a little bit better, right? Because if you have a month of having the card before anyone else because it drops later, then that's a premium, like that's kind of worthwhile. Maybe you have a competitive advantage even, but otherwise a lot of people would rather wait and then not pay the premium and just get the discounted price. So I think in a month's notice would be great. Another thing is Series 5 and 4 now have shared rotation protection in the token shop. Don't 100% know what that means. Cards were rotating in your token shop at an 8-hour interval. I think the Series 5 showed up at a different rate of Series 4, and maybe now it's the same. So I don't know. I don't 100% know what that is. If you do, let me know in the comments below. Then we got some art and visual effects. That's great. Then we have the card updates. I'm going to skip by these because we're going to get to them in a second and highlight a few here. There's a text-only update to Yondu. I think this is actually pretty huge because a lot of people were confused by what does remove mean when it discounts death. Well, now he reads destroy the top card of your opponent's deck. That just makes more sense. A lot of new players are going to understand that mechanic, and now he's a destroy card, apparently, technically. And then also, there's a few text updates to Angela, Bishop, Iron Fist, Lockjaw, Titania. They're just kind of saying instead of when you play a card, it's after you play a card. It's the same effects. It's just a little bit more clear for everybody. Like if you play a card at the Lockjaw location, it's after you play it, not right when you do. Okay, so it's all pretty well the same. Sakaar has a location update. So now it's after this turn, put a card from each player's hand here. So the difference here is that it's going to actually happen after the turn. So you know that if your hand is full of stuff that you maybe don't want played right away or something like that, or maybe you want to play a bunch of the little stuff so that big Infinite is left in your hand, it's going to be the one pulled from Sakaar. That actually has a huge impact in the games. Before it was just at the beginning, and it was like, oh, okay, I guess I'm just going to retreat because Infinite got my opponent got Infinite, I got like Quicksilver or something stupid. So this is actually a pretty welcome change. And then you got a few text-only updates to all the others, but they're all going to be pretty well the same, except Clintar at the bottom here. Clintar's symbiote is going to be a 4 cost now, not a 1 cost. That's kind of huge. Killmonger used to destroy it pretty easily, so now it avoids Killmonger. That's pretty good. And then there's a bunch of bug fixes, but if you want to check it out, go to marvelsnap.com. All right, let's get to the balance changes. All right, and kicking off the balance changes, we have Thanos, who's now at 11 power. That makes him one of the biggest power cards in the game. You have Infinite at 20, but if you complete Thanos' quest with the Power Stone and playing all the Infinity Stones, you get it to 21. That is really, really big. That's a huge swing. 3 power boost is nothing to laugh about, and actually what ends up happening is you don't really end up completing the quest in most games when you're playing Thanos. It's usually just a bonus if you can. So just being able to play it on turn 6 if you have nothing else, 11 power is going to feel a lot better than the previous 8. So I actually think this is an absolutely cracked change. For this reason only. I think Thanos was slowly becoming one of the best meta decks in the meta right now. I just recently got back from the Creator Clash in New York City, and it was so much fun. So many awesome creators. But the deck that did not lose a single match was a Thanos deck. It was run by Ordinary Harry, and it's fantastic. I've been playing it and have increased my rank by 20 in just like the last day. And I haven't even been playing that much. It just wins games. It's like Spectrum Thanos. I'm going to do a video on it soon because it's so much fun. I honestly think it's the top deck right now. And that was before this buff. So straight up, that deck just got buffed, and I think it's going to be at the top. I think it's absolutely crazy. It doesn't even matter. Like, it works with a Lockjaw cycle, right? So you're Lockjaw cycling, and sometimes Thanos comes out. Before, he used to just be 8 power, and you're like, okay, cool. If I can complete the quest, I'll have 18 power. Now it's 11 power. You don't even have to worry about completing the quest. That's just straight up a lot of power. And then if you complete it, 21 power at a Lockjaw cycle location is cash money. I have never said this before, but I truly believe that Thanos is the best Series 5 purchase. I think if you have 6,000 tokens or you're wondering what you should save up for, I think Thanos is the card for 2 reasons. 1, it's very strong. It's just a very strong card. 2, it's one of the big bads. It's not dropping from Series 5 anytime soon, so you don't have to worry about buyer's remorse of buying it now and then having it drop like a week later or a month later. And I actually just thought of this. Number 3 is it's incredibly fun. I love Thanos decks. You're playing all kinds of cards. You're drawing all kinds of cards. It's very, very interactive. So I try to avoid recommending purchases, but if you're going to save up your tokens, you want a thrilling Series 5 card, something that's actually going to work pretty well in the meta and carry you places. A card that doesn't even need all that much Series 3 support. Maybe Lockjaw might be the best addition to this, but you can find a lot of decks with Thanos that are like cheap. I highly recommend picking it up if you can. Okay, but that wasn't the only change. Darkhawk was also changed. Not a too crazy change, but it went down in power. So it went from 1 power to 0. The reason I got it in a green and red bubble is because I don't even know if this is a buff or a nerf. Obviously, in most case scenarios, it's a nerf. But Mr. Negative exists and already kind of worked decently with this deck. And now Darkhawk Negative seems really, really good. So maybe it ends up being a buff because of that change. I don't know. But regardless, we got a bit of a drop in Darkhawk. We already had the drop in Zabu. So that deck, that rock slide, that absorbing man, throwing rocks into your opponent's deck for buffs is slowly getting dropped down in the meta. And as you can see, I don't own this card, so I'm kind of here for it. I guess it's disappointing that I won't ever get to play it when it was at its prime, but hey, what can you do? And then possibly the biggest change of this balance patch, even though I know I said the Thanos one was awesome, it was just a power increase and didn't really change too much, just made it a little bit better, right? Darkhawk, not too great. I don't even know if it's a buff or a nerf. Sandman is crazy. This is such a buff. This is such a meta changer. And a lot of people have been calling for this change. So it used to be a 4-1, and a lot of people wanted it to be 4-4. Well, we get 5-5. And I think that is pretty darn good, because really the best application for Sandman is to slow down your opponent's turn 6. Stop them from playing more than 1 card. So if you have Leader, Leader might be back, you can copy whatever that 1 card is. Or even better, Arrow. Maybe you're winning 2 locations and your opponent has 1 available space at a location that they're already winning. Well, you play Arrow there, you pull it over, and they cannot win the game. That seems nasty. That seems really, really good. Is it going to be at the top of the meta? I don't know. It's going to be a pretty good deck, I'm sure of it. Some control type with Sunspot, something early, a little splash. Then you Sandman on 5, you Arrow on 6, and happy days. Does this do well against the Thanos deck I was just talking about? No, it doesn't. Thanos deck is doing so well because the Arrow doesn't work against it, and Arrow's like arguably one of the best cards in the game right now because you fill the location so quickly with the Thanos deck. The Arrow actually can't really find any value. So I don't know, maybe these are the 2 top decks and one just kind of stands a little bit over the other, but we're gonna see a lot more Sandman. Trust, I'm sure we're gonna see this card popping up in a lot of control archetypes. And you know what, I'm kind of here for it. I didn't like Sandman before because people were cheating it out early and then I can only play 1 card like 3, 4, 5 turns. Now I think for the most part you're going to see Sandman on 5, and then that's fine. I can only play 1 card on 6 and I can retreat if the card I have available isn't that great. So I think it's actually, I'm here for it. I really like this change. It's not one of my most hated cards anymore. All right, and here's a weird one. We got a few minor buffs, and we got a buff to Namor. I had talked about this previously about changing Namor and giving him some power, and actually I got a lot of backlash because I changed Namor to a 4/7, and everybody was like, why would you change his base power? Change the power that he gets from his effect. Well, that's Team Second Dinner thought otherwise, and they gave him some power. Not 7. I guess that's a little too broken. It beats the curve, because if you think of the Thing, for instance, you don't want to get too much power over the Thing, even though they do separate things. But basically what this does is it makes Orca want to cry in a corner and never come out of your collection. Because why would you run Orca over Namor? I don't know. Like, obviously it's 3 more power net, you know, but I don't even know, like, is that worth it? Like, it's hard to just get 1 card by itself, and if I can play things things on turn 6 that aren't Orca, I'm probably pretty happy. So maybe this helps Namor. I was running Namor a little bit when Zabu times, you know, because it was cheap and I could just focus on other locations, and my opponent has to deal with 10 power. Now they got to deal with 11 power, and maybe that's enough to warrant, you know, a little bit of Namor play. I would be hopeful for it, but I don't really think it's going to happen. I don't think this is going to change the meta, and I still don't think we're going to see a lot of Namor. A similar buff is to Dagger. We got +1 power for Dagger, which is very welcomed. Very welcome. Dagger was like probably the most underwhelming move card, you know, that benefits from being moved. You got cards like Torch, Vulture, right, and Dagger, you know, was just kind of fallen out of favor when it can really make a big difference. It makes you, if you know your opponent has Dagger out on the field, you don't want to stack locations too much. There's a bit of a psychological trick there, but the power wasn't too scary enough to warrant it. You had to move it a couple of times at some really filled up locations, which is just tricky to do. So maybe the extra power is going to help. If your opponent has 4 cards at that location, right, that's going to be 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. That's a 10 power Dagger, but it might be hard to set that up, move it to accordingly to that location. Maybe you were already winning it anyway, so it's a little bit tricky, but I think this is enough to give her a shot in move decks. Is it going to make move decks meta? No, sadly no. Maybe they'll do good against that Thanos deck I was talking about, huh? Maybe that's a nice little counter if that ever becomes a little too popular, but for now, I don't think this is going to change the game too much. And lastly, we have SpiderWoman getting a similar treatment. She's getting +1 power. I actually think this one is a little bit more than the others of an impact anyways in her gameplay, or seeing her in some decks. Afflicting all enemy cards here with -1 power. If they have 4 cards at that location, that's going to be 4 power essentially. To SpiderWoman, that's a 5-12 power differential. That's really, really good. Also, she dodges Shang-Chi. If you happen to hit 3 cards and there's an open spot, she's still less power than a Shang-Chi snipe. So that's actually a really nice spot to be. But here's the problem. We already have so many 5/8s, and they don't typically see a lot of play because the ratio still isn't quite there. But her effect is pretty bonkers, and if you can activate that again with an Odin, that's even really good. I could see her being in like a give stuff deck, you know, like with the debris or the Viper with the hood and all that kind of stuff to just really mess up your opponent, limit their options for playing cards, and then hitting them harder with that negative power. Even Green Goblin, right? Green Goblin location, then you SpiderWoman, you probably won that location just with that play alone. So I think we could see more SpiderWoman. At least I hope so, because this variant is sick and I really like the card. But anyways, let me know what you guys think about these balance changes in this patch notes, what you think will rise, what you think will fall. But luckily these were buffs, not nerfs, so I think it's overall going to be received pretty well. Get your Thanos ready, because he's going to be climbing the top of the meta. He's getting those stones, and endgame is coming. All right, so thank you for watching, and I'll catch you guys next time.